Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Justin Beck.
And I'm Chris Cobb.
And welcome to The Closing, your top news in commercial real estate from the past week. Everything you need to know, the most important things you need to know before you head off into the weekend. Get yourself recharged for the next week in commercial real estate. This week, we're going to talk about Starbucks. We're going to talk about the famous East UA property here in Pensacola. We're going to talk about Chicago's Union Square.
Yes. And
all sorts of other very cool things going on. Well, we've got some interesting movement happening on the 19-acre parcel just a block or so from where I'm sitting right now. This parcel was purchased by Quentin Rishi Studer several years ago. It's the site of the former wastewater treatment site. And it's been a sort of a mystery and definitely questions about what's going to happen with it. So just this week, Quint Studer announced that he would be donating a portion of that property to Pensacola Sports for the construction of a future sports complex to attract sports tourism, tennis, basketball, volleyball, those sorts of things.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's great for the community. It's going to be, I think they want to have a 100,000 square foot facility take its place, as well as maybe some other retail components, mixed use, which is fantastic, with the hopes that it will draw some more folks to Pensacola. It's been on everybody's minds for the past year. It seems like a lot of folks are buying up land surrounding that property, building some residential homes, maybe trying to put their offices a little bit closer. Everybody trying to figure out what's going on. So it's nice that we have a little bit of clarity for what's going to happen for that parcel.
Absolutely. The west side of downtown, now with the Maritime Park and everything that the Wahoo Stadium Maritime Park is doing for our community, this is right across the street. So a further anchor for development as Pensacola grows to the west. I'm really excited about it. Of course, because we're right here 1 or 2 blocks away from it, but then also just happy to see more varied development coming to downtown as we diversify our community and strengthen it.
Starbucks announced that it's going to be closing close to 150 stores next year in 2019. Now, they're mainly going to be closed in dense urban areas such as New York, LA, Atlanta, places where you may see a Starbucks across the street from a Starbucks across the street from a Starbucks. So fear not, people here in Pensacola and more local communities, your Starbucks is not going away. You can still get your pumpkin spice lattes coming up here in the fall, so don't worry about that. But they will be closing 150 stores as a response to their stock dropping about 3.5% over the past few weeks.
Lots happening with Starbucks, the change of leadership at the top, and now store closures going on. But you're right, on Bayou Boulevard, we've got 4 Starbucks all within about a mile radius there. You've got 1 at Cordova Mall, you've got 2 on Bayou, and now 1 in the Target Supercenter. So interesting to see if all 4 of those survive, but they're all pretty new. So hopefully they will. Good stuff, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just kind of a response to, I think they also, when they had to go through their store closing, when they closed all 8,000 of their stores recently with a controversy they had, I think it forced them to look a little more internally at their operations and to do kind of an internal audit on what they could do to improve things, not only from a customer service and PR perspective, but also from a financial perspective.
So there's 8,000 stores total.
Currently,
so they're closing 150. Not small news, but not detrimental.
Absolutely.
Well, Florida Power and Light, Florida's largest energy supplier and a subsidiary of NextEra, which is the company that is purchasing Gulf Power, Pensacola's utility company, is going to be purchasing 400 acres for $10 million from a residential builder. And what's interesting about this is that they're doing it to build a solar energy plant. Great news for the residential community builders because their folks are going to have some much more affordable electricity, I suppose.
Absolutely. I think it's a great move by Minto Communities, which this solar plant is hoping to, I think, supply about 1,500 homes while they're planning on building close to 4,500. So it'll supply a good portion of those. It's another one of those creative moves by some of these developers, with the extra pieces of land. Instead of maybe trying to develop it a little bit more, Instead of trying to sell it and change the use, we've decided to go with some solar plants here as a use to complement what is already being developed there. So I love it. It's a great creative move, just like we've seen with some of these companies over the past few weeks.
I know you like it because some of the Navy bases here in Pensacola have done that very same thing, right? To get a little bit more use out of their properties.
Absolutely, yes. Corey Station recently here in Pensacola, which is known for the Naval Warfare School, just recently is doing a solar array plant here to help complement them as well too. It's great to see companies do that to help with their infrastructure, but also to show that they're being forward with technology, being forward with innovation to help be more energy efficient, but also to invest in that technology. Chicago's Union Station, which is going to be a transit-oriented development by O'Donnell Riverside Development Investments. They are going to be adding about 330 hotel rooms, about 404 residential units atop Chicago's existing Union Station. Another great project, a way to make commuting life easier and to make it easier for people to work in the downtown Chicago area. Great project. The renderings just came out. It's going to take a few years, obviously, to build, but it looks fantastic. They're going to have some mixed use, obviously, with some retail and some office. Really exciting to see how this project unfolds.
I mean, just another example of the changing landscape, how our world's changing in real estate. You know, you see this transit-oriented development in Denver. It's really happening in Orlando now with some of their light rail systems. It's just good to see it happening in Chicago as people are building, still somehow building seas of parking lots for us to park our cars on. We have some forward-thinking developers that are going out there and putting residential on top of a commuter train station, which I think is just brilliant.
Absolutely, especially for millennials, for the younger workforce that is taking over now that millennials have become the dominant workforce from a population standpoint. Putting in easier ways for people to get in and out of the city, or just to live in the city within, live in the city proper, I think is going to be great as the economy improves and as there are more jobs being offered within urban areas.
And it's not just millennials either, Chris. You know, at Southtown, the apartments, about 60% of those residents are going to be empty nesters. So it's not just the young people, it's the empty nesters that are getting out there and enjoying those urban environments, and they're ditching the keys and making life a lot easier on themselves. So I'm a little ways away from that. I've still got the big Ford F-150 because I got to go back and forth to soccer practice all the time, but I can see the light one day where I can hop on a train or walk to dinner and not have to worry about driving and finding a parking space.
There you have it, another episode of The Closing. A couple of good, as we like to say, tasty morsels to take you into the weekend and re-energize you. We talked about the great new development and plan for the 19 acres here in downtown Pensacola, which will change the face of downtown and its community. We talked about making America less caffeinated, maybe closing 150 stores for Starbucks next year. Chicago's Union Station getting a good facelift with some residential components, as well as Florida Power & Light doing great things, buying a site for some solar plants. So join us here, same time next week. Have a great weekend and get ready for next week.